Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar presentation. We're going to be talking this afternoon about an organics diversion proposal for Rotorua. Just pull up my screen. So I've just got about 10 to 12 minutes of slides to talk through, and then we've got a contact email address at the end if you have any further questions that haven't been answered through the presentation. My name is Megan Cooper. I'm a Waste Minimisation Officer at Rotorua Lakes Council. So when we talk about organics diversion for Rotorua, in saying organics, we're referring to any plant or animal product that can be broken down by decomposition. So it includes things like food scraps, fruit and vegetables, meat, bones, peelings, eggshells, and the like. And it also includes paper products like paper, cardboard, egg cartons, and that kind of thing. When we talk about diversion, we're referring to the movement of those from where they're currently going from landfill to somewhere else. So three main reasons why we are considering an organics diversion in Rotorua. And the first of that is that when we look at our average waste generation over the last few years, we can see that there's been a steady increase in that. So on the left-hand side, there is a graph which shows our average tonnes per month for Rotorua. And you can see that that's increased from about 1,100 tonnes per month in 2018 through to 1,400 tonnes per month in 2021. Now, these measures are referring to waste that is collected through the red lid bins that we collect on curbsides. That's the data that we have available, so it doesn't include waste that people take to the landfills themselves in their own vehicles, or waste that's generated through some businesses who have commercial arrangements in place. So this is all the waste that we collect in our red lid bins. So one thing that we did when we looked at that is we thought, well, is this increase just due to the fact that our city is growing, we have more households, we have more people living in our area? So we took a further analysis of that data to figure out whether or not that was the case. On the right-hand side, you can see the data that has been pulled out of that, and it shows that even when we do account for the growth that has occurred in the region, waste, when it's broken down per household and per person, is still showing a general increase in the waste generation that we are creating. So per household, we've gone from 480 kilograms per year to 577 in the most recent waste assessment, and per person from 181 kilograms per year to 221 in 2021. So for every average household, we're looking at about 10 to 12 kgs of rubbish every week in those red lid bins. So the increase that we're seeing is not just from growth in our city, is probably also due to the fact that we are generating more waste and we are disposing of more waste in landfill. Another analysis aspect of that is every 3 years, Rotorua Lakes Council undertakes a waste assessment to see what the composition of our waste is. Most recent assessment was completed in 2020, 2021, and these are the results from that. So our total waste calculation in tonnes per year was 16,000 tonnes at that time. And we look into that a little bit further, and about just over 4,000 tonnes of that was food waste, and just over 4,000 tonnes of that was garden waste. When we add those two together and we also add paper and cardboard products, which are also compostable, we can see that about 10,500 tonnes per year of that 16,000 is compostable product that we could be diverting out of the landfill and disposing of in other ways. There's also another 2,500 tonnes of recyclables, which were found in that waste, which we could be diverting via our existing curbside collections. So in summary from that, only about 4,500 tonnes of the 16,000 tonnes that we're generating per year currently is stuff that actually does need to go to landfill. It's about 30%, it's a very small proportion. A second reason for looking at organics diversion is the general environmental impact of sending organics to the landfill. So when they are buried in that way, organic material breaks down, it decomposes without oxygen, and it creates a lot of methane gas emissions. So methane is a greenhouse gas that has more potency than carbon dioxide. And the greenhouse gas emissions for Rotorua, about 6% of that is from waste. And it equals up to be about the same as running about 16,000 cars. So it's quite a lot of methane emissions that are coming from landfill, from the waste that we generate. In addition to these emissions, there's also a product that comes off the bottom of the landfill, which is all the liquids and fluids that come off the decomposition process, and that's what we refer to as leachate, and it's really, really high in nitrogen and phosphorus and other things like that, and it's a product that is toxic and it needs to be treated through our wastewater treatment plant. So in terms of environmental impact, if we can reduce the organic material that's going to the landfill, then we can reduce the emissions, the methane emissions that are coming off that, and the leachate that is having to be treated. A third reason for looking at organics diversion is in regards to taxes and regulations. So this table just shows what we're currently paying and what we are projected to pay when we are diverting waste to landfill. So the blue bar at the bottom of this table shows just general operational costs of a landfill. Above that, there is a orange bar, which currently you can see is $20 per tonne, and that's a levy that the government imposes on the use of landfill to dispose of waste. That is projected to increase and confirmed to increase to $60 per tonne by 2024. So it's quite a big increase going to happen there. The next bar above that is the carbon tax that we pay under the emissions trading scheme. Currently that's sitting at around $37 per tonne, and it's projected to increase to $75 per tonne from 2024. On top of that is GST, which is also looking to increase. So overall, we are looking at a tax increase from 40% to 57% in the next couple of years for landfill fees, and that threads through to people living in Rotorua in a couple of ways. It increases the cost at the gate when you're taking your stuff to the rubbish, but also all of the stuff that you put into the red bins in your curbside collections, that is also sent to landfill and so is subject to these tax increases. In addition to that, there is some movement in the national space looking at our recycling and waste management space. And one of the things that is currently being considered is whether or not the government is going to mandate organics collections for councils. So whether or not we choose to adopt an organics diversion currently, this is something that we may be mandated to look at within the next couple of years anyway. So the proposed solution that we're looking at today is organics diversion via curbside collection. So we already have curbside collections for general waste in our red lid bins and recyclables in our yellow lid bins and our blue crates. So the proposed solution is to add an additional bin or bins for the collection of organic waste, to have that transported via our rubbish trucks through to a waste processing and resource recovery option. So three key phases in that. The first is about source segregation, so supporting our households to segregate out the waste and separate organic waste from non-organic waste and use the correct bins in order to do that. The second part of that is ensuring that we've got infrastructure and systems to collect that from curbside and transport to a processing facility. And then the third part would be looking at waste processing options and resource recovery. So a few different options in that space. There's anaerobic digestion, which is basically where you take organic waste and you turn it into a biogas product, which can be converted to energy. And then there's composting and vermicomposting processes, which can create soil products, which can be used to fertilize soil and grow more food. So the first option, of course, is for us to do nothing and to keep things as we currently are with our red lid bins, our yellow lid bin and our blue crates. And that would mean that we would probably continue to see the high proportion of organic waste that we currently see going to landfill. If we decide, yes, we do want an organics diversion, then there are four key options being considered. In this slide, we'll have a look at what those options are in terms of how many bins we would end up with, what can go into each bin, and how frequently the bins would be collected. And there's a couple of little circular logos on this slide, and that's just to show what could go into the bin in the various scenarios. So the green circle shows some lawn clippings and hedge clippings, because when we talk about green waste throughout this presentation, we're talking about stuff coming from your garden, your lawn clippings, your leaves, your sticks, that kind of thing. And when we talk about food waste, we're talking about all our food scraps, which includes things like eggshells. And then depending on which option is selected, can also include meat products or dinner leftovers. A few considerations for any of these options. So if we are looking at collecting food waste, that must be collected weekly due to health and safety considerations and the general factors that come with the collection of food scraps. Green waste doesn't decompose as quickly, it doesn't generate as much smell or issues, so it can be collected fortnightly. In any of these options, including business as usual, there would be no change to the recycling services. So the yellow lid bin and the blue crate would continue to be collected fortnightly, no matter which option is selected. In any of these options, there are risks of incorrect segregation of waste, so people mixing things up in the wrong bins. And so any of these options would require resourcing to help prevent that, and that's some of the work that I do at Rotorua Lakes Council. So looking at these 4 options for organics diversion, the top 2, green waste only and food waste only, these are collections of either or. So it's collection of either green waste only or food waste only. Both of these options, as you can see in the diagram, would result in 1 additional bin. If it was green waste only, that would be a fortnightly collection. If it was food waste, that would have to be an additional weekly bin. Because we would only be diverting one of these elements from our red bin in these 2 top options, we would still need to retain a weekly bin collection, because the other component that we weren't collecting would probably still be going to landfill for many households. The other 2 options are for us to collect both food and green waste, and we have 2 scenarios. We could either put those into separate bins and they'd be processed separately, or we can put them into the one bin and they can be processed together. In both of these options, we would be looking to reduce collection of the red bins, because there would now be over half of our current waste being diverted into that new green bin. And there would also be no smelly or rotting waste in the red bin, so fortnightly collection wouldn't cause any issues in that sense for the red bin. So the option on the left at the bottom, separate food and green, that would require 2 separate bins, with one of them, the food bin, being collected weekly and the green bin being collected fortnightly, and the rubbish collection would be fortnightly. In the food and green waste, there would be only 1 additional bin, and that would be a weekly collection, with the red bin also being collected fortnightly. So let's look into these in a little bit more detail. This provides a bit of a breakdown of our diversion potential with these options and the additional cost that would bring for ratepayers and rent payers due to the changes in service. So option 1 that we would look at would be business as usual, where we would have no diversion of organic waste. We'd just continue as is. Now, just noting in that one that even if we do nothing, we're looking at an increase in cost due to the increase in levies and emission trade taxes and other expenses of landfill that are going to occur, and those are outside of our control. So for that option, we'd be looking at an additional approximately $17 per year added to our current targeted rates for waste management. And that would bring that rate up to $238 per year. It's currently sitting at about $221. So option 2 and 3, that would be to look at either garden waste or food waste only. Each of those options would bring a maximum diversion potential of 25%. So about 25% of our waste would be diverted from landfill, with the rest of it still going where it has been up until now. The organics collection, if it's green waste, that would be collected fortnightly. If it's food waste, that would be collected weekly. Rubbish collection would still be weekly, because of that small diversion potential. The additional cost, as you can see, for green waste is less, because it's only an addition of a fortnightly bin. Because everything else stays the same, we've already got a fortnightly net collection to add there. For food waste, because you'd be adding a weekly collection on top of what we already do, there's a greater cost involved in that. Options 4 and 5, both of those bring a diversion potential of 55%, which is quite a bit more that we could be removing from our landfill. Organics collection would be weekly or fortnightly, depending on whether we have them all in the same bin or not. Remembering that food waste would always have to be weekly. Rubbish collection, we would look to reduce to fortnightly because of the diversion of all of that organic waste. And then the cost would depend on whether we're going with 2 bins or 1, and if it's a food and greens collection separately, then that would be a fortnightly collection on that green bin. So the second yellow bar there just shows the additional cost to add 2 rates for each of the different options. One thing to note, because we know that there are a lot of people who do use commercial services to remove green waste from their properties, but all of these options do work out to be a bit cheaper than a lot of the commercial ones that are available currently. So this table just shows in a little bit more clear detail the diversion potential compared to the targeted rate. And from that, we can see that the cheapest option to only divert our green organics is cheapest, but it doesn't address the food waste issue, which is what the government's potentially looking at mandating. So that's just something to keep in mind with that option. Probably in terms of value for money, we can see that with FOGO, which is both food and green organics in the same bin, we have the greatest potential for diversion in comparison to the cost. One thing to note with these is that where we are looking to get the higher potential, so for the FOGO option and the FO and GO, which is we're collecting all of the organics but either together or on separate bins, for those two options we would be looking to reduce the bin collection to fortnightly. As part of the consultation though, we are asking people, what do you think about that? And if you don't agree with that and you'd be wanting to maintain your weekly red lid bin collection, then we would have to factor in an additional cost of that additional collection, because these costs have been based on reducing that red lid bin to fortnightly for those two middle bars, FOGO and FO and GO. Looking at the impact, currently we divert about 5,000 tonnes per year via our yellow lid bins and our blue recycling crates for glass. If we were to add an organics bin, we would be looking at an extra potential for 4,000 to 8,000 tonnes per year to be diverted. Some of the other positives from that in engaging in our organics diversion, we would be contributing to a circular economy. So we'll be taking food and plant products and processing them to then create more food and plant products that can be used to generate more food and plants. We'd also be supporting climate change mitigation by reducing our methane gas emissions and leachates that are being produced through burying our waste in landfill. We'd be contributing to new sustainable industries, so we'd be able to support jobs in either whatever the processing facilities were that were to be adopted. So if it was, whether it's the biogas services that we already have developing in our region, or whether a composting facility is set up, we'd be able to support jobs in industry in those spaces. In addition to that, a lot of the councils around us are already adopting organics diversion, and there are those movements and discussions around some national mandates or decisions in that space. So if we to look at organics diversion, we'd be moving towards a new norm for organics diversion in New Zealand. So in the consultation, there are 4 key questions that we're asking. We're asking what is the preferred option for organic waste collection, and there's option 1, business as usual, option 2, garden organics only, option 3, food organics only, option 4, separate food organics and green organics collections, option 5, mixed food organics and garden collections. The second question is, if you do opt for option 1 and your preference would be to maintain business as usual, we would really be interested in knowing what are the main concerns that you have around organics collection service, so that we can understand that a little bit better. Question number 3 is, if you selected options 4 or 5, which is where we're collecting all of the organics in a separate bin, do you agree with having the fortnightly rubbish collection, or would you want to pay that extra $35 a year to maintain the weekly red bin rubbish collection? And then the fourth question is just if you have anything else to add, any other questions or things that you would like to bring up. In order to submit on this consultation, we have a survey form available on the Let's Talk website, Let's Talk page on the Rotorua Lakes Council website. So the link is on here, but you can just Google search Let's Talk Rotorua and it will take you through the page. And then from there, you'll be able to see the organic waste collection button. Once you go in there, there's a bunch of resources that you can refer to. So there's our main consultation document, which provides some of the background and explanation, which we've just gone through in this presentation. There's also some information about the different options and what the bins would look like and what the extra costs and things involved in that would be. And then there's a link for you to just click in and fill in those 4 boxes. So consultation finishes on the 16th of June. Just looking at a timeline in terms of how this would all pan out if it did go ahead. So we're currently consulting now. Once that's completed, the proposal document would be looked at with all of the consultation submissions that are received, and council would make a decision on organics diversion. If it was decided that it would go ahead in some form or another, then there would be a procurement process to work out, well, what are the best options for Rotorua based on which method we've opted to go for. And then there'd be decisions on procurement, preparation for service delivery, establishment of infrastructure, rollout of all the bins. So we're still looking at quite a significant time frame, and we'd be looking at organics diversion service commencement from 1st of July 2024. That's all the information that I have to present today, but if you do have any further questions, there is an email address there which you can contact me, and one of our team can try to answer those for you, or you can go to the Let's Talk Rotorua website and review the information there. Thank you very much for listening, and we would really love to hear from you via the submission process. So if you could jump on in and submit your thoughts, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks everyone, have a great rest of the day.